next session, in which we are going to have Manuel and David making a presentation on the modeling blueprint. The modeling blueprint, very quickly, is Manuel is going to talk about that much more, but is the first sketch of the modeling suite that we are proposing for the different labs. Is tailored to each lab, and this is the most important part, it's open to discussion. It's just a blueprint. So as its own name indicates, it's something that can be reviewed, can be reframed, and we are looking forward to your contributions very much. So Manuel, the floor is yours, and David as well. Manuel, David, I don't know what you decided before, but the floor is yours, and whoever wants to go first.
Thank you very much, Leonie, for the introduction. Well, I'm going to share the screen. Let me check. So, well, as Leonie said, the session of today of this WEBSTIVAL has a focus on the modeling blueprint within the project TRANSCEND. I think probably most of you were present in yesterday first session of this WEBSTIVAL, in which Leonie as coordinator was presenting the project. But I'm going to start today with a brief introduction to this modeling blueprint. Then we will talk about David Perky, who is the director of the Latin America Center of the Stockholm Environmental Institute. He will briefly talk about water modeling and probably making a connection between modeling and Greek philosophy. And then we are going to present the TRANSCEND modeling blueprint, which is part of is a deliverable actually of the project, in which we are analyzing the modeling suite to be developed for each of the labs that we have in TRANSCEND. So it was said yesterday, TRANSCEND is a Horizon Europe project in which we have 15 partners coming from Europe, but also from South America and from Asia. So it's a very international project with 7 different case studies or labs. And the purpose is to explore strategies and pathways in order to support change as a response to persistent water challenges, including under an uncertainty, because we need to consider the potential exacerbation of those conditions by climate change. We are going to explore what we call transformational adaptation policies, TAPs. And of course, I suggest you go to the project webpage to have more information about the project, and also you can follow the project's updates using the social media. So within the work package 2 of the project is the work package on co-creation in the labs, in the 7 labs in the project. We are leading at UPV, at the Technical University of Valencia in Spain. We are leading the deliverable 2.2, and it's the deliverable on the blueprint for the modeling suite. The purpose of this analysis of blueprints is first to analyze the responses to the particular water challenges in each of the labs. Then, of course, the project will build on existing models. We are not starting from scratch. Existing models and tools already available. But we want to analyze the gaps, the existing gaps on modeling, and to contribute to fill the gaps identified for each of the labs. In this contribution, we will introduce innovative, groundbreaking method and tools. We will address, of course, future situations, including climate change and land use and global changes. And the idea is also to consider the cross-fertilization among labs. And actually, the idea of this WEBSTIVAL is also part of this cross-fertilization, as a way of interaction between the stakeholders. So I mentioned modeling gaps. This is a very important part of this analysis of the modeling blueprints. We analyze the system models and the modeling schemes that we are designing for each of the labs. And we found some common gaps that we are going to analyze during the presentations. For example, in some cases, we see a limited, sorry? Is somebody talking? No? Okay, so yeah, so some of the modeling gaps. So for example, the gap analysis, of course, have been done at the lab scale, but we found some common gaps across the labs, like for example, the limited or in some cases, even the lack of groundwater modeling and stream aquifer interaction in some of the basins. This is crucial. The lack of economic assessment, or the lack of comprehensive evaluation of ecological flow ecosystem services. And in some cases, the need to include the latest climate change scenarios available. And as you probably know, the latest generation of models is under CMIP 6 from IPCC. So these are the 7 labs that were explained yesterday by Dion in the introduction to the first session of the WEBSTIVAL, and we will go lab by lab to discuss the modeling blueprint from each of them. But I want to say a few words about modeling. First, given the complexity of water management problems, we know that water management problems are complex because we often have multiple objectives, and those objectives are often in conflict. And we have a high uncertainty on future demands and future water availability. And there is a high impact, including environmental impact, and a high cost in our decisions. So in order to take the best possible decisions for the design, or so the planning phase, or for the management operation of water resources system, we need to resort to computer models, because computer models will help us to do an integrated analysis of the system performance and be able to predict the impact of different alternatives in the different objectives that we are considering. Of course, people working in models, we all know that all models are wrong, but some of them can be useful. So that's the idea. The real thing is too complex to be simplified in a model. We need to know that, but some of the models can be useful to support decision making. Models can help also to analyze the operation of the system or the design, but are also vehicles for communication, for training, for forecast, experimentation, and negotiation. We often talk about the shared vision coming from the model. And in this shared vision, it's very important, it's crucial, and this is in the core of TRANSCEND project, to integrate the participatory approaches and the participation of the stakeholders. So the challenge is to find an optimal combination of actions, we call them tabs at the beginning, to find an optimal portfolio of measures to balance supply and demand. And this combination of measures have to be economically efficient, okay, but has to be also socially acceptable, have to be also environmentally sustainable, and have to be robust given the uncertainties that we are facing, and climate change is one of the key uncertainties we have now in the system. And in order to determine this optimal portfolio, we have a very broad range of options. So we have supply enhancement options. We have many different alternatives. We can talk about an optimal conjunctive use, but not only of surface and groundwater resources, but also non-conventional resources. But it's not enough to resort just to supply, but we need to, of course, integrate demand management options, and not only technical measures, but also economic instruments and regulation will be combined. And what to do with a so broad range of alternatives? So how to select the best pathway of solution of adaptation? We really need to do that using computer models that will help us to define what if scenarios and to try to find what best solutions to apply to the different problems we face and the different challenges. And this has to be done integrating the natural system, the socioeconomic system, and of course, what is the legal and institutional framework, because we have to find solutions that are feasible considering the context for the water resources system. The combination of this economic, engineering, and environmental aspect of water resources systems is really crucial to provide results that are more relevant to policy, to decision making in the policy context. And finally, this has to be done in combining top-down approaches with bottom-up approaches, and this is crucial nowadays in the definition and the use of models for policy making. So we need, of course, the scientists to do the modeling change, to analyze the impacts, and to be able to reproduce the complexity of the system. But we need a stakeholder from the beginning, because we need to determine the future land use scenarios. What is the catalog of potential measures and difficulties and acceptability? We need the stakeholders to participate in the co-design and validation of the models. So it is crucial. We often talk, and here you have a reference in the slide. We talk about a top-down meets bottom-up approach. So the models will have to do this integration. So after this brief introduction, I would like to give the floor to David Parkey from Stockholm Environmental Institute to talk about, or to introduce also some reflections on water modeling. So David, please.
Okay, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me and can you see the slides?
Yes.
David, yeah.
We see that.
Okay. My name is David Perky. As Manuel mentioned, I'm the regional director for the Stockholm Environment Institute in Latin America. It's very early here. It's 3 a.m, so I hope I can be cogent at this hour of the day. Prior to taking this job, I led a research team within SEI that develops our signature river basin modeling software that we developed within the Institute. So I can say that I've had a career as a water resources modeler. And so I appreciate many of the things that Manuel had to say in his orientation and contextualization of this second day of the WEBSTIVAL. And as I've spent so much time developing and applying water resources models over the course of my career, I've progressively asked myself the question, what is the right role for a model, a complex river basin model, in the context of a multi-actor, multi-objective planning and decision-making process? And those thoughts have led me to review some of the basic philosophy that I learned many, many years ago as an undergraduate student. And I think there might be some Greek participants in the audience here. And so in advance, let me apologize for any mispronunciations of some of the names that I'll be sharing in this part of the presentation. The goal here is just to plant some philosophical and sort of some questions as to how we should properly conceive the role that models play in resolving complex water resources challenges in our living labs, our learning labs, but also in any context where water managers and stakeholders are involved in a discussion about what the proper course of action might be. So for this, I'm going to try to take us all back to ancient Greece and start telling the story with a person whose name is Pisistratos, who is also known as the Tyrant of Athens. And he was famous because he took dramatic steps to help improve the water supply situation in Athens. He was actually leading the Athenian city-state when the aqueduct was constructed to convey water from springs in the adjacent mountains 7.5 kilometers to the center of the Acropolis. And this is, some of the remains of this large major infrastructure project still can be seen in some parts of the Athens regional area. This is renowned as one of the first sort of mega infrastructure projects related to water resources, and an example of, centralized planning, investment, decision-making, implementation. This was the first water supply project that brought water from outside the Acropolis to supplement what were previously systems based on basically rainwater capture cisterns types of water supply systems. He accomplished this, however, by imposing very heavy taxes on the wealthy in Athens at the time to be able to finance the construction of the project. And historians vary as to whether this was a factor or not, or one of several factors, but soon after his reign, there was a rebellion against his son, who took over after he died, that led to the creation of the Athenian democracy, which lasted from 510 BC to 322 BC. It was, historians vary, as I said, as to whether the heavy tax burden that was imposed to construct the aqueduct was one of the reasons that the citizens revolted and created the Athenian democracy and overthrew the tyrant of Athens. But the fact of the matter remains that in Athens, over the next 200 years, large water projects essentially stopped. And I think many of you can understand this. I mean, being water managers, trying to mobilize the support, try to mobilize the funding for, in major water management improvements and investments is challenging. All the more so when you're dealing with a democratic type of political system where the opinion of the stakeholders needs to be really seriously taken into consideration. There is a Greek chronicler by the name of Demosthenes who wrote in 361 BC and 357 BC of an extreme drought that was happening in Athens at that time. He wrote that my lands not only produce no crops, but this year, as you all know, the water even dried in the wells, so no vegetables grew in the garden. And then he also observed a few years later that there was a universal shortage of grain. So this suggests that at this point in time, there was around 360 BC in Athens, there was a serious drought occurring, and other chroniclers wrote about how the cisterns, the rainwater catchment cisterns, were beginning to run out of water, and people were struggling to find enough water for water supply and also for gardening and producing vegetables. And at this exact same moment, two famous Greeks were spending time in Plato's academy. Plato, the teacher, and his pupil Aristotle, were studying the basic tenets of Western philosophy and having long discussions about what the proper way to make decisions was, and what is just and what is fair, and what's the role of the experts in decision making and in governance, and what's the role of the citizen in decision making and governance, and coming to some quite different opinions as to in terms of the answers to those questions. And that discussion is characterized by a fresco that can be found in the Vatican that was painted by Raphael. It's called the School of Athens. And Raphael attempted to put in one common place many of the great minds of Western philosophical traditions. These people were not all contemporaneous. There's studies of this fresco which talk about each of the individuals that are in this photo, in this work of art. But most prominent at the center are Plato and Aristotle. And it's interesting the way that Raphael characterized the two of them in his realization of the fresco. Plato, the older man, is pointing to the sky, suggesting that there is some perfect solution that can be discovered to any problem that a just society might face. He put a lot of faith in what he called the philosopher kings, people who had the ability to think deep thoughts and were well enough trained that they could actually discover what the perfect solution to any problem facing a society might be. Aristotle, the younger man next to him, has his hand out flat, sort of suggesting that we need to keep ourselves grounded. We need to be thinking about the political and social realities of where we are. There might not be a perfect position, and it's important that we consult with the citizens, with the middle class, is what I referred to them, and get their opinion, and so that we can find the best possible solution for our context, not necessarily what would be theoretically the best possible solution. And I think that this fresco summarizes sort of the difference in their philosophical approaches to how decisions should be made in a just and functioning society. And one can imagine that as they were living through a drought, they were probably asking themselves what was the best and proper way to respond to the drought, to the cisterns drying out, and to the people struggling to find water. I mean, that's a very important social question. And so one can imagine them in their coffee breaks discussing how they should deal with the drought that was impacting Athens at that time. And so we have here a proposal that attempts to combine, the way that Plato would think, that there are experts, there are philosopher kings who have the capacity to help us discover the societally optimal or perfect solution. And we have Aristotle who's saying, but let's not lose track of the fact that we need to convince the citizens. We need to bring the citizens along with whatever we decide is the proper course of action. And Plato is captured in computer models, right? They're developed by experts, people with a lot of training, a lot of expertise. And it's possible that, and in the past, it was often carried out that the experts would go into the room, they'd run their computer models, they'd come back with the results, and they'd say, this is what we should do. I think over the last 30 years, it's become increasingly clear that we need to involve the citizens in this process and co-create the knowledge that would allow us to make the right decisions for any particular context, and in the case of our project, any particular learning laboratory. So what we're proposing is an approach where we will use computer models to try to predict the future state of the world, and based on that understanding of what the future state of the world might be, and with all the uncertainty that implies, test different alternative strategies, and then show the results of those strategies to stakeholders and consult with them, and then potentially go back and analyze different alternative strategies under potentially different future states of the world, and thereby try to integrate the sort of philosophical approaches and arguments of both Plato and Aristotle as they might have discussed them during the Athenian drought of 360 BC. And just to close, as Manuel said, river basins are complex systems, right? So, I mean, if the gray box is the current conditions, in the future we might have less precipitation, and we might have higher evapotranspiration because of climate change. We might have changes in land use in the headwaters of our river basins, deforestation or reforestation. We might have expansions of agricultural systems often small scale agricultural systems in the headwaters of our river basins. The way we manage our infrastructure might change, the rules might change. And for example, we might need to start taking into consideration more environmental factors and regulations. Large scale industrial agriculture could change. Cities can grow, economies can evolve, and we need to be able to provide water to meet the needs of these evolving cities and industrial mosaics within these emerging societies in a river basin. So things are going to change, and we need models to be able to figure out the way these changes are interacting. And that's why we use models, which are always wrong, but sometimes useful, hopefully useful. And here, just to close, you can see that, there's various things going on here. I mean, we have models that might be thinking about just basic hydrology. How is rainfall runoff changing in response to changing climate conditions? We might have landscape ecological models that we need to be thinking about. We might have water quality models. We might have agronomic models. We might have water demand models. We might have economic models about various water use sectors. And so the challenge is creating suites of modeling tools that capture all of the important processes that are happening in a particular river basin, so that we can have a suite of tools that would allow us to do what we're proposing to do, to combine the view of Plato, to have the best possible rigorous knowledge applied to the problem, as Plato would suggest in the person of the philosopher Kings, while also using that tool to facilitate a discussion with what Aristotle would refer to as the middle class. So that's the purpose of, I think, that's one way to interpret the approach that we're taking with regards to the modeling blueprint. With that, I'll turn it back to our colleagues in Spain, who will try to apply some of this thinking to the analysis that we've been doing of the modeling context in the project's living laboratories. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, David. Thank you for the great presentation, full of insight on water modeling. I really love the parallelism between the Greek philosophy and art, and also water modeling. So thanks for that. So the next step in this presentation will be to present the modeling blueprint. So Hector Macian from our team at UPB will be presenting the summary for the different labs. Hector, you can go on, please.
Okay, thank you so much. Well, in TRANSCEND we have a total number of 7 labs, 4 of them placed in Europe, 2 in Asia, in different locations, of course, and 1 in Latin America. You can see here an overview of the living labs. I will go one by one, focusing on the European labs. Okay. Well, sorry. The first lab is the Reno River Basin, and compared to the current modeling suite, the blueprint of the new modeling suite depicted in TRANSCEND includes new hydrological projections tailored to the semi-6 scenarios constructed for the river basin over 2 periods, 2021-2050 and 2071 to the end of the century. And this use of semi-6 scenarios is a constant, something repeated in all the labs. Okay. Also, improvement and generation of the water resource and management model for the Reno River Basin. Currently, there is a Topkapi model, but depending on the flexibility on changing the Topkapi model, the WEB can also be adopted, and also including statistics and the new modeling suite. And 2 points of improvement, which are improving the agronomic modeling for the Reno River Basin to take into account the changes in the crop needs and also the crop productions, and also implementation of a socioeconomic model for the Reno River Basin in order to take into account the economic trends and economic variables and how they interact with water management, something that this is also repeated in the rest of the living labs. In the case of the Júcar River Basin, the Reno was placed in Italy, the Júcar River Basin is placed in Spain. You can see here an overview of the modeling blueprint that is going to be implemented. there are models that are already existing. For example, we have a hydrological model, which is TETIS. With this model, we will obtain hydrological projections using semi-mixed scenarios. We have some previous work done in these semi-mixed scenarios, but the idea is to expand this work by implementing proper downscaling and bias adjustment technologies. Okay. And also we want to improve the way in which we are estimating the agricultural water needs and the agricultural production in two different models, with different agronomic models forced by climatic scenarios, of course. One model for herbaceous crops, which are important in the middle basin, and one model with citrus crops, which are important in the lower basin. In particular, 1 of 5 oranges produced in Europe came from the Hooker. Okay, so it's a basin quite important in terms of the orange market at the European level. And the idea is that this model will be updated to include the influence of the increasing CO2 concentrations, which can have a distinct impact on how the crops behave. Particularly for citrus, it's something, or woody crops is something not that it can be improved. Okay, the current state of the art. So the idea would be to update this model, taking into account this issue. And then with all this information, we will force two water resource management models, a hydroeconomic model and the system dynamics model. Both models have a previous version. They will be updated. For the hydroeconomic model, we will change the modeling routines to switch to demand curve calculation, to the computation of the estimation of the crop production and also the crop prices to infer the benefits. And the system dynamics model currently does not include ecosystem services, which we want to add. And also hydropower is not included in the modeling blueprint in this system dynamics model. This is so far for the Hooker. Then for the NITRA is placed in Slovakia. So in the NITRA, we have existing climate, hydrological, and agronomic information. But the idea is, of course, to update the climate and the hydrological model, the climate models by including semi-fixed projections. A hydrological model will need to improve the calibration or how the ability to these models to reproduce the hydrological features of the Nitra River Basin, and of course include the responses of the hydrological system to new climate change scenarios. And then for the Nitra River Basin, we will develop new models associated with these ones, which can be divided in 4 different models. First of all, a water resource management models, in particular targeting the determination of a coal power plant located in the area, and also the stop of using water for mining. Then a groundwater model to be able to reproduce the geology of the region and also how this groundwater interacts with surface water. Then economic modeling, including both a hydroeconomic model to estimate benefits of adaptation policies, in particular the use of water retention measures. It's not a policy; it's a construction. Okay, it's building a retention basins, and also we want to use this to assess the impact of water tariffs. And besides the hydroeconomic model, which is a microeconomic model, also a socioeconomic model in order to find the economic impact of the coal phase out, the transition to a green economy. Okay, and basically this model will give us the broader picture. Okay, for the areas that are in relationship with the Nitra River Basin. And finally, an ecosystem services model in order to define ecological flows, define sustainable groundwater levels, and also to include nature-based solutions and estimate the impact they have on these ecosystems. And also with the hydroeconomic model, the idea would be to make to put a price tag also to these benefits versus costs of using these measures. Then finally, the fourth lab in Europe is in Tempaki River Basin, placed in Greece, in Crete. Okay, here in the Tempaki River Basin, the central part will be a new WEB model, a new water resource management model that will be used to compute water balances in the river basin, find out unmet demands, and also drought vulnerability through the drought vulnerability index, DVI. And with these models, the idea is to assess the water resources and the status of the current situation, and also future climate change and socioeconomic scenarios. using the response of this model to these scenarios, together with a catalog of adaptation measures, okay, this will be introduced into MATLAB in order to define a cost-benefit analysis of these measures and find which are the optimal ones. So this MATLAB will control the execution of WEB in order to provide optimal portfolios of measures that afterwards they will be assessed, taking into account the how optimal they are and how robust they are. So how do they respond to more than one scenario? Because something that can happen in climate change is that there is one measure that is behaving very well in one scenario, but is not behaving adequately in the rest of the scenarios. And this is something that, if possible, needs to be avoided, because we will bet no one that this scenario is the correct, and this is something that might not happen. So the idea is to implement a feedback loop in which, based on the performance of this mix of solutions, the calculation will start again and again until we find an optimal combination of these adaptation measures. Then for the Caprina-Mauri Desaguadero system, is based in Latin America, in Bolivia, Peru, and Chile. So now they are 3 separated WEB models for Peru, for Bolivia, and for Chile, and these models will be combined and expanded into a single WEB model representing the whole river basin. Besides this model, we have new components that the current models do not have. Particularly, they are similar than the NITRA, a groundwater model, a ecosystem services model, and hydroeconomic model, of course, okay, and also the use of new climate change from SIMIPSIS climate change data. So everything will be, about the ecosystem services model, everything will be incorporated in WEB, plus, of course, a glacier model, which is quite relevant in this basin. And the idea is to use this new modeling set to find with the new climate change of models to provide better future scenarios in order to define the needs and also the performance of adaptation measures. Then the Mahanadi River Basin, currently there is a WEB model that will be extended to include the Odisha part of the Mahanadi River Basin, and something similar, that because it's repeated in the last, that we incorporate groundwater flow models in this WEB model, and also they will assess the environmental flow requirements using the outcomes from these WEB models. And new models will also be created, and new methodologies to assess the aquifer dynamics, like pumping, recharge, and lateral flows, and include them in the surface model to find out the interactions between surface and groundwaters. And also will ensure that the minimum flow at the critical points of the river is respected. And finally, the Orontes River Basin. We have in this basin, we have groundwater model, we have a surface water model using WEB, have climatic data that we will update, land cover data that we will update also to better represent the current situation, and it might include also future situations. The climate change scenarios will come from SIMIPSIS as the rest of the models, and also as normal modeling. Okay. And then we will include a current economic model for the transboundary part of the basin, and similar a hydrological model. And the idea is to use this to feed agrohydrological models to find out the future scenarios in terms of what can be cropped, which will be the productions, which future droughts might suffer the agricultural systems, in order to provide better assessments and define the need of adaptation scenarios. So this is the last lab, so I will stop the sharing of the screen, and now it's time to open the floor for questions, I guess.
Yeah, thank you, Hector. So we have seen also now the technical part of the modeling grouping for each of the 7 labs. We are a bit behind schedule, but I guess we can take a couple of minutes for quick question, no, Dionis, that's okay?
Yeah, of course. Better have them now.
I think Guido has a couple of questions written in the chat, but Guido, do you want to summarize them very quickly, please?
Yeah, I might too. I mean, Manuel, when you were presenting, I had 2 questions about. I mean, I'm always doubtful whether the terminology balance supply and demand is the most appropriate one. Maybe we should consider talking about adjust demand to possible supply. The balancing sounds very nice, but in practice yeah, I don't know. I would like to know how transformational adaptation actions are considered in the demand management. For example, I mean, you mentioned technical measures, but we have been talking with some European stakeholders about, for example, stop irrigation completely, change crops. This is much more transformational. How are these considered in the portfolio? I mean, there are some adaptation options at climate adapt, and I don't know whether I mean, Hector also mentioned the adaptation options. So whether we consider all these adaptation options from climate adapt as possible solutions, that would be interesting. The second point on when you step into the bottom up, how are the non-consumptive water users considered in the European discussions? We have often people from the navigation sector. They are complaining that they are not consuming water, and therefore very often they are not even invited to any decision-making processes and even discussions on this. So they're just somebody who has to live with the water which is left in the river by the others, but their water needs in terms of meters in the river or something like this is not considered. And then I had when Hector was presenting, I was also wondering whether you have already thought about how to deal with uncertainties and results from the modeling. Because I mean, I think we are all, or at least I'm a bit frustrated with the modeling coming up with very clear numbered results where you have a three after the digit three numbers where it says how water will be available in 2037 or something like this. How will this be considered? How will we consider that the e-flows, which are supposed to ensure biodiversity conservation, but I mean, we all have, or in many basins, we have some numbers fixed for the e-flows. Sometimes they are not respected, but I mean, for many of them, we have no clue whether these numbers are really the appropriate ones. So, how will we deal with the results from the modeling, and will we provide, or is the aim to provide a range of figures or just a number, and how detailed the number will be, with which sub-comments saying, oh, this has a 50% uncertainty or something like this? That would be very helpful to understand. I think that's one of the main purposes of the project as well. And sorry for being so long.
Thank you, Guido. Thanks for the questions. Well, the definition of the portfolio solutions, I think this is one of the reasons that the approach has to go under a top-down meets bottom-up. So we really need a participatory approach to define a catalog of potential actions that we can implement in each case study. Water problems are always local, so this need to be studied at the case study level, of course. But this portfolio should include measures, as I mentioned, technical measures, but also economic and financial aspects, and also institutional solutions. So regulations like limiting the crop area or etc. They have to be, of course, included in the portfolio of solutions, depending on what are the challenges for the case study. You mentioned the non-consumptive uses, navigation or shipping, etc. So this might be important for some cases. Maybe it's not in others. For example, in our Hookah River Basin is not an issue because we don't have. But in those cases in which this is an issue, of course, models should tackle this problem. I always mention this sentence, that all models are wrong. Of course, we are not able to reproduce the full range of issues that might be able, but if we are going to use the model to reply to certain questions, then of course these questions have to be the key questions should be reflected in the model effort. And you ask about uncertainty. And of course, uncertainty is crucial and is in the core of this project. So it's always difficult to deal with uncertainties. It's not making easy decisions, but it's making more realistic the analysis of the results. So all models should consider uncertainty in all the different phases. Uncertainty on the inputs, uncertainty on the modeling itself, uncertainty on the human responses to the different conditions that might evolve in the future. No, the way to consider uncertainty, some of the case studies in the modeling blueprint were referring to robust solutions. No, so we look for what is the different range of future scenarios we might have. We have to consider this as plausible options that we might have in the future, and the solution have to be robust, starting with low regret solutions that are to be implemented even if there is no let's say extreme futures. No, that will be my suggestion. No. I guess we are now behind schedule, but it will be great to continue the discussion on these issues during the breakup, well, during the participatory sessions we have at the end. No, does it make sense, Diony?
Yeah, thank you. Absolutely. Thank you, Manuel, and thank you, Guido, for the question. I think we cover all, I mean, most of the relevant issues that we have to deal with over the next few months. And Manuel was highlighting the need for top-down meets bottom-up, and I think that this is one of the purposes of this WEBSTIVAL and all the interactions with the stakeholders in the workshops. I mean, the international workshop will have not only to present results but to get their feedback. So yeah, I mean, now we are running a bit late, but I mean, in the panel session, I do hope that we can get some of their impressions on the blueprint and maybe building on the exercise we're going to have now, in which we are going to have stakeholders participate. We can encourage them to give us their opinions, because we are really looking forward towards that. So now we are running a bit late, as Manuel was saying. But it's fine. I mean, now we have a session in which we are going to showcase some potential applications. We'll have Francesco Sapino from Universidad de Salamanca. Francesco has prepared some interactive exercise, which I hope you are all going to enjoy and actively contribute to. So please, Francesco, the floor is yours. You can go ahead.
Thank you, Dionisio. I will share my screen. Can you see it correctly and hear me also? Okay, thank you very much. So I'm Francesco Sapino. I'm a postdoc researcher at the University of Salamanca. And I'm going to present some potential application of the modeling that we are applying in another project, Talanoa Water. And as a showcase, we're going to see also some tools, the serious game, for example. So just a brief introduction on this case study. So the Sega catchment in Spain. It's located in central Spain, central north. So it's an area that usually historically was almost with high precipitation and availability of water. But as you can see in this subcatchment, we have the river that is only in a part of the subcatchment. So the majority of this catchment actually relies on groundwater. One of the challenges is that in this catchment, there are no regulation of the river. So it's one of the few in Spain that is good for an environmental perspective. We can enjoy the beauty of the natural flow, etc. But of course, this comes at a cost, because with the increase in climate instability, we are observing an increase in extreme events, especially, of course, floods and drought. Another challenge of this area is that there is an expanding horticulture that is relying, as we have seen, especially on groundwater. So this is a good thing in economic perspective for the development of the catchment and of the region, but also in this case, of course, comes at the cost of increasing the pollution of the area, especially for the leaching from the agriculture. Because this place was already relying on groundwater, there are some retention areas to improve the quantity of water that is going to groundwater. So there are areas in which we are recharging the deep aquifer, but because of the increase in water use, these are not enough for meet the actual demand. So the result is, of course, that the deep aquifer is overexploited, and this, of course, means some problem in the future especially for the agricultural sector. So one of the solution proposed is to build a new dam that will be built in this, in this area. So we can rely more on surface water than on groundwater. But of course, this is still under assessment, so it's still not decided if this will be built or not. So in this area, we have created, this is our kind of blueprint of model that we have used in this project. As you can see, we have a big ensemble of models. So basically, we have different climate scenarios. We have an ensemble of hydroclimatic models, 4 climatic models and 8 hydrological models. And then we have an interaction between the natural system with the water management model and the socioeconomic system with an economic model. So we are able to simulate, of course, as Manuel was mentioning before, all models are wrong. So we have to interpret the results of this modeling, but still we are able to model quite in a wide perspective all the catchment, from the hydrology, the possible climatic impact of climate change, and the socioeconomic results of this forcing. And so now we arrive on the question of what is a serious game? What is this tool that we can implement to talk with, especially with stakeholders of these kind of problems and these models? So basically, a serious game is an actual game, but the primary purpose of this game is educational or a training. Okay, and so still it should also be in some kind of way entertainment, for some entertainment purpose. So there are many different ways in which we can implement this serious game. There are actual computer games or some board games. What we are gonna play today, it's another version of this game. Basically, you will have to vote some different strategy to tackle all the problem we have seen before of this catchment. So you will receive a link in a few moments in the chat, and you can open it and vote for the strategy. So basically, each of the strategy, as you can see, this is an example, comes with different policy choices. So, for example, we can invest more in infrastructure, or more in management strategies, or in financial measures. So, and as it is a game that will take place in 3 different time periods, so basically we will make a choice for a first short-term horizon, 2025, then for a longer term based on the results of the first choice, and then or on an even longer term based on the previous two choices. Okay, so we have a budget that we have to allocate to implement our strategy. So of course, if we invest more in the first time, we will have less for the future application. Just to have an idea on what the measures that are considered in this place are, the different icons refers to dam, aquifer charge, irrigation modernization, expansion of the irrigation area, financial resource and environmental costs that are basically different kind of pricing strategy with different purposes, of course. So if we charge the three of them, we will charge the full cost of water. Then we have the environmental flow, so more in the perspective of having some water, the minimum water needed for the environment. Some technique of remote sensing to control the effective use of water, and then other policy as buyback or insurance to have some financial implementation in case of bad outcomes. So each of these, of course, are simplified because are a really complex policy. And so basically you can see that each of these strategy can have an impact, positive or negative, in the economy, in the environment, and it has a cost associated. So basically this is what you should use to make your choice. So the first example, the dam, of course, it comes with high cost. It will have a good impact for the economy because we will have enough water in the longer term, but of course it comes at the cost of a high environmental cost. Okay, so I think I can. Okay, I will leave this screen that you can see, so it's better for you to choose the policy, and I will send in the chat right now the link in which you can vote for the strategy of the first year. I think you have received the link, so please open it and vote. You should be able to do that. If you have any problem, please let me know. Okay, I see someone already start voting.
Yeah, thank you, Francesco. In the meanwhile, maybe I can just make a brief statement. So this is a game that we implemented recently in the context of another European project. It's a simplified version of what we will deploy in TRANSCEND. Francesco has been leading this the development of this game. What you're seeing here, it's a simplified version of the simplified game. So I mean, it's not the game that we actually developed. The game we developed was closer to a board card game in which we played with cards with the different agents. So it's closer to the second picture that Francesco showed you in this slide with the computer-based game and the board game. In the case of TRANSCEND, we are going to adopt different approaches. We are going to adopt the Stenaton approach as well, which is slightly different to this one, but it's still close. So the idea of having you playing this, having you engaging in this interactive session, is that of giving you a flavor of what these serious games may look like and what you can get from them. I think they are pretty much useful to convey complex information to decision makers. In this case, the game has some uncertainty attached, as you will see later on, because obviously we didn't give you all the information. But yeah, so the purpose of this session, I guess, to give you a first glimpse of how these games may look like, because as you may know, maybe you don't know, in the next workshop we are going to have with all of you, with the stakeholders and academics, the idea is to deploy a first serious game, and we're going to have a serious game also in the third and in the fourth workshop. Some of you already even played a simplified game in the first one as an illustrative approach. So yeah, that's basically what I wanted to say. I mean, to give you some context on this interactive game. I don't know, Francesco, how the answers are going.
We have 17 now.
Oh, okay.
I don't know how many are we, but I think
We are
probably
30, I think 32.
or
So
30. Okay,
maybe
we're actually having two strategies that have the same number of answers, so please follow voting. Okay, 21. Maybe just some second more, and then we will see the results.
also one thing that Francesco already highlighted, but I think it's important, these plus and minuses that you see on the screen, they are based on a specific case study. I mean, they are by no means universal. This is based on our modeling exercises. So, I mean, the idea of giving you the context was for you to take the decision based on the theta. We know it's difficult when you're online to, I mean, get engaged in a way that you are like, you've invested in the basin, you know how it works. But I mean, don't think that this is something that, I mean, there's no bias here. It's just the model telling us this, and we are just showing it. It changes from basin to basin, of course.
Okay, I think we have 25 answers enough. So just let me produce the results. I need a moment. Let's see. Okay, so let me share the screen again. Share. Okay, so you have selected a strategy that was strategy 2, actually, that has this outcome. So in 2025, with what you have decided to allocate your resources, you will have an impact in profit that will decrease a bit, not very much. Also an impact for the environment, and also an impact for the labor requirement. So basically, it's kind of in between of the different strategies. So you have an impact in the 3 metrics we are considering, but you will still be able to increase or decrease the impact in profit, environment, especially. So going a bit here. Okay, so basically what will happen now, that when you select strategy, you will go for the second one that I will send you in a few moments. And then each of the strategy can have different outcomes in the next period, so in 2035. So you can improve the profit outcome, the environmental outcome, or the labor outcome for each of the different strategy, okay? Based on your next choice. So let's see, just let me send you the second link. You have select strategy 2. So in the second step, this is the link. You have it now in the chat, so please vote also for this second step.
Also, you have any question in the meanwhile, don't hesitate to make it. Sometimes it's not easy to completely understand the game at the first time you play it. What Francesco was showing before with the arrows was giving you an idea of the locking costs that you may incur when you pick a policy. So essentially, picking a policy sometimes involves some irreversibilities, and that is going to result in some path dependence in the choices of the future. So meaning that if you build a dam today, in 10 years, you cannot go for a strategy in which you just don't have many dams because the dam is already placed there. So that was also designed to show you the impact of sunk costs, irreversible costs, and also path dependency. Also, as you can see in this second round, the strategies that you have for which you can vote as a result of this are different to the strategies that you had in the first round, because they are already influenced by the choice in the first round, what you chose in the first round.
Yes, thank you, Dionisio, for the clarifications.
Do we have like answers already, Francesco?
Yes, we have 20 of them, so I think we can select the second results. That was strategy 2, also in this case. So I will show you now the results.
You produce the results. Just one quick comment. You may have been surprised by the negative outcome that you have in the first round. And Francesco was saying that this is an intermediate result, which is, meaning that this is not the worst result you can get. This is a very special basin in which the impact of climate change is expected to be quite severe, and the projections are quite severe as well. So essentially, when you input all these projections, climate change projections, into hydrological models and economic models, the impact are going to be negative. Even if you implement, brilliantly the adaptation options, the impacts are going to be most likely negative, at least in one of the indicators, and in most cases in 2. So this is something it's important to know. Having a negative impact is not telling you that you got it wrong. Maybe you did it right. Or maybe you minimize the impact, but there's this. Yeah, please, Francesco.
Yes. Okay. So you have selected also in this case strategy 2, and that will be the outcome. So in 2035, you're almost with this kind of similar impact in terms of profit losses. So not that bad. You're improving the impact in labor, because it decreased from -24 to -20. But the impact for the environment is going up. So it will pass from -22 to -43. Something that I probably didn't say before, this percent change, of course, in terms of profit at labor maybe are kind of obvious. So a decrease in the profit and decrease in the labor. In the case of the environment, we're using a proxy that is the environmental flow, so the water that is available for maintaining the minimum flow. So a decrease in it, it means that you're way more exposed to the possibility of going below this limit. Okay, so based on this, let me just send you the last the last link of your policy. So to see the effect of your choice in 2045. This is the last one. You should have it right now.
Yeah, it's working. Well, they both. I am going to read the comment by David.
Yes.
We do not appear to be dam builders. It's true. It's true. I have to say that when we did this with the stakeholders here, the dam building strategy wasn't the most voted either. And we played it twice. In one game, I think they went for the dam. But I mean, it was like not fully engineering based. It was at the very end. And in the other one, they didn't go. With the other group, they didn't go for the dam at all. In this region, by the way, dam construction is a very sensitive issue. They have been debating the construction of this dam for, I mean, decades even now. In different spots, they have tried to do different viability assessments, and thus far, this project has not been taken forward. So yeah, even for them, it was not the best way to go. But I mean, here is not either, which is, I mean, good to see. You're agreeing actually with very much with what was discussed with the stakeholders here.
Yes. Okay, we're having 18 answer. We're waiting for at least 2 more. We have reached 20 in the last 2 votes.
Yeah, and Hector also said that in Spain, all the good dam places are already taken. Pesistratos will have built a dam. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I agree, David. And also, Hector, is true that, I mean, this is actually the problem with the dam here. I can let you know because you have already voted, most of you, for the strategy in the last round. The problem with the dam here was the economic feasibility. It was going to create a positive impact, but it was highly inequitable. Many farmers could not pay for it. In this case, you have a groundwater-fed horticulture, so it's a high value-added crop, crops. The problem is that you also have cereals. The dam obviously is going to be used by, I mean, all farmers were going to gain access to it, and therefore the payment has to be split. Many of them could pay a lot, but many of them couldn't. So there was an equity issue here, which is still very relevant today. Also, a reason why you have the environmental deterioration, independently of what you do, even if you are pro-environment, you will have, and maybe you can keep the environment as it was, but it's very likely you will have a negative impact. Is because there is a substitution here between groundwater and surface water. Progressively, as we go forward in time, the groundwater here is over-allocated, as Francesco was mentioning, and the piezometric levels go so low that the River Basin Authority in the River Basin plan, acknowledged that we have to replace groundwater with surface water, and that leads to the negative impact, even if you are pro-environment. So please, Francesco.
Yes. Okay. So we have reached the final outcome of this game. You can see that you have improved with your third choice both the environment and the profit impact, and impacting a little bit more on the labor market. Still, I mean, the idea of this game, of course, it's to be in the perspective of the people that decide the strategy to take, and I'm well aware that probably all of you knows that there is some big trade-offs between saving profits and going for environmental policy. So of course this is something that you already know, but still these tools are really interesting, especially when we have a broader audience, maybe with farmers, with policymakers, and so in other kind of games we can exchange the roles between these two, and it is at least in our experience was really useful, even if in a really simplified world that is this kind of games, to take the role of someone else and see what are their difficulties and the trade-off that they need to consider to make a choice. So yeah, I mean, the serious game actually is done. It was the first time we did it online. I think it went quite good. Diony, I don't know, what do you think? But yeah, I mean, that will be it. Of course, all these results were calculated with the modeling framework that I showed you before. I think we are in time.
Yep.
So
Yep. That was,
yeah, if you have
very...
any question, please let me know. And if not, I think, Diony, we can open the floor to the discussion.
Yeah, of course. No, we can I mean, take a couple of questions before, I mean, via the chat, or if you want, just raise your hand. A couple of clarifications for the game. As you know, as you saw, probably the game is deterministic, so you have multiple alternatives depending on the policy that you choose, but then you choose the policy and there's an outcome, which is what Francesco was showing in the slide with the arrows. This is something that in Transcend, I don't know if we can do that in the next game, but at least in the two last games, it's going to be slightly different. The idea is to have uncertainty. And obviously this map with the different arrows going from one scenario to another were not shown to the stakeholders. They didn't have an idea of what their decisions will be. In Transcend, this will be slightly different. We are going to show the predictions, at least the idea is to show the predictions from the models, so that agents, I mean, the decision makers, the stakeholders, have information on what may happen in the future. Then we have the discussion based on that information, and then we'll just roll the dice, because as you know, and as was mentioned by Guido and Manuel, there are uncertainties, and these uncertainties will realize. And we don't know what's going to happen. I mean, not even us who program the models, because as we said, we roll the dice. So this uncertainty will be the focus of the serious games that we'll have in Transcend. So it's slightly different to what we saw today, but it's the same idea. It's a serious game still. So yeah, I hope this was illustrative enough of what we pursue with this project in terms of stakeholder engagement and decision making. So I don't know if we have questions. No hands raised, but I saw Yaro turn on the camera. I don't know if that means that you want to make a question, Yaro, or...
Yeah, good morning, colleagues. Thank you, Dionisio. My name is Jeremy Ziak, and I'm part of the team working in the Euro-Mediterranean Center on Climate Change. I wanted to give you a break, as I'm supposed to moderate the discussion, and it's good to refresh perhaps the audience and broaden up the discussion and move towards perhaps other questions and contributions. So if you don't mind, I would perhaps address the audience a little bit, encouraging you again to think broadly beyond the serious game that we have just seen and listened to. This is an excellent example. It provides excellent input to the policy and governance processes about how to reorganize the water resource management into the future. But of course, there's no win-win situation, right? You have seen the colors have changed across the scenario. So there is a trade-off. You are increasing, putting more in some policy domains and taking away from somebody. And this is creating conflict. It's create the need for coordination, dialogue, and negotiation as well. So with that in mind, I would like to open the floor for general discussion. Anyone from the laboratories that take part in this WEBSTIVAL would you like to share your thoughts on whether you do something similar in your pilot? The challenges that you encountered, are they similar? Are they different? You might share thoughts about the current state of the monitoring or modeling framework that you are applying. So turning to the audience, turning to the pilots, would somebody like to break the ice? If not, I might ask question directly to the audience. If you perhaps you might still raise the hand. If not, then perhaps I would invite Paolo Mazzoli from the Italian stakeholder group. Paolo, are you with us? Can I invite you to turn on the video camera and
I turn it on. Here I am.
thank you, Paolo. And I know that your company is developing excellent modeling framework and developing climate services for managing the water resource management. So would you like to a little bit elaborate on what type of modeling you are providing and what you see as the main challenges in the pilot, in pilot like in Italy, in this case, the Reno case study?
Yes. Well, my company is involved. Thank you first of all, thank you, Yaro, for inviting me. Our company is Ecosystem. We are developing mainly models on water resources, both related to floods and, in this case, management of water resources. So, besides prediction of availability of water resources, we are also dealing with the complex problem of equilibrium, let's say, balance between resources and demand. That's also what I see as a common issue in this pilot and in many, I would say, similar situation, many critical hydraulic nodes that we have in our region. So what I see as a very interesting point that could be, for example, addressed through Serious Game is the complex effect on different choices on water balance, and particularly on what happens, as briefly I've been explaining, the example Francesco showed us, if we take decision on the availability and the related consequences in chains on the different, let's say, economic usages of the water and environmental as well. So addressing this complex chain is a very critical point that we have seen also in other similar issues. We are involved also in Terranova project, in another pilot which shares very, very, I would say, similar issue. And addressing this through a serious game like the one that Francesco was showing is for sure a way to, let's say, trigger the consciousness, to the final stakeholders, to the final user of the water, what happens if they take a practical decision and on the possible users of water, and particularly on those who make the policies, so the other level, the regional government particularly, what could be triggered through an action at the policy level in order to let's say, trigger the change, start the change. So I both see a great value in addressing and trying to test this transformation adaptation policy also through the use of.
Thank you very much, Paolo. This was not prepared. I need to mute somebody. Right. Brilliant. Thank you very much. And this is very valuable because I know that you are developing a similar serious games in other application contexts, and this is brilliant. If I may, a very quick question and quick answer, follow-up answer. What kind of do you think the serious games point to certain policy change and policy reform, or this path is still very difficult to make? From the simulation and from providing evidence to the policy, what is the largest challenge that we faced in Italy in the pilot, in your view?
Well, we are not short of technical capability of, let's say, producing data and technical projections, no? And also we are not short of capability of changing this information into, for example, an economical impact, no? To address what happens if we take one road, the other road, the different, let's say, destinations that Francesco was showing in the serious game, no, different possible destination. But what is, my opinion at least, also difficult to trigger is that, let's say, we turn this technical, even detailed, even well informed about uncertainty information into, let's say, a change of the rules, because that entails not only the, let's say, a good technical knowledge and a good addressment of the uncertainty, that entails also, I would say, a decision at the political level, no? Changing the rules is not only a matter of having good technical information and very, let's say, well-informed, serious game that shows what will happen. That entails, I would say, interests, no, categories, particularly categories involved and affected by the decision that you take, and that definitely entails a decision level, also at a political level, that let's say could be taking the decision goes sometimes far beyond the technical information that we can provide at the best of our knowledge. That's also
brilliant. Thank you so much, Paolo. Now moving to other colleagues, and I still don't see any hands, so I will continue trying to address the participant directly. So I'm going to ask a question to Michela Serra, who is also from the Italian stakeholder group. Michela, are you with us?
Hello, yes, I'm with you. I'm Michela Serra from Bologna, Bonifica Renana. We are involved with this webinar because we are a possible stakeholder for Reno Basin projects, State of Casi. But in the developing of possible strategy, we are not very competent, because we use water from Reno for agriculture, and our basin gives back water at the end of our district. And I'm following your discussion. It's very interesting, but I'm not sure I can give you a useful feedback from our work.
No, this is brilliant, Michela. Thank you very much. And again, this was not prepared, and we really appreciate your participation. I would just, because you are from the Water Management and Irrigation Board, which is a specific entity in Italy that is managing the artificial channels meant for drainage of the land, especially in the lowland, as well as providing the irrigation water. But would you have perhaps one short answer on the type of monitoring that your entity is doing, and what kind of challenges do you encounter there? So how do you monitor the water across your infrastructure? Would you have a thought on that and share the complexity in managing it?
Yes, we monitor our water when we take it from Reno, and in the distribution we know each year which are the areas that will take water from our channels, and so we can imagine what is the water volume that can use for agriculture. And so we know how much water come into the system and how much water go back to the Reno at the end of our system. In the middle, we can imagine how much is the water for the agricultural uses. In all of that, we have a double useful use for our channels, that is for water flow, water event gestion, and for water distribution. It is promiscuous. I don't remember English name, promiscuous. Yes. And so our water balance is not easy because we have the meteorological events and the water that you use for irrigation in the same system. And so we use some lot of days to for our balance that are with no water, because when we have got when we have the both contribution, is more difficult to do a correct monitoring. But during the year, the balance is only what we take from Reno and what we give back to Reno, and how much water goes to the farmers.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Michela. That was really interesting, really nice. Then moving to another pilot, and our lead or participants from the pilot, I would start with Robert. Robert Blaszko, are you with us? You are representing the National Environmental Agency in Slovakia, and you are leading the Slovakian pilot. We have heard about the pilot yesterday during the opening session, but could you perhaps summarize what the type of policy change and the difficulty associated is in your pilot, and how it links to the modeling capability? Robert?
Yes, thank you for the word. Good morning, everybody. My name is Robert Blaszko. So I'm from the Nitra river basin, and so I think our basin is a little bit different in the sense from the others, in the sense that we don't have such a pressing scarcity issue yet, but that might be in the future, and we don't know yet. And I think that's because we don't have the good projections or updated projections for the basin and how the climate change will impact on hydrology. We also have a quite difficult or complicated geological situation that was also aggravated by a long history of coal mining. So there is a lot of unknowns and a lot of things going on in parallel. And I think the most pressing challenges or gaps are that the institutions don't have capacities for doing some modeling work. The knowledge usually depends on some individuals, and there is no continuity if they leave. Also, the monitoring, it's not. I mean, there is a hydrological network which is run by the Hydrological and Meteorological Institute, but the data are often not available. So that's another issue, the accessibility or availability of data, and different competencies, like different institutions are responsible for different things, and maybe the communication among them is not always the best. So
thank you very much, Robert. This is very insightful. I would have one follow-up question, a short one. And your case is really interesting because it highlights also different type of transformation. It's not only climate change and impact of water resources, but also the economic transformation and the energy transition that is impacting how the water is managed and how the water is basically used in the future. But I would like to ask again with the same question that I asked Paolo regarding this participatory model building or participatory setup where we run the series game and obtain a result that should be useful for the policy making. Do you think we have some experiences from doing similar thing in Slovakia? Are you aware about some participatory setup in creating models and deciding collectively, or is the decision making more hierarchical and hidden behind the technical skills and the wall created by them? So what is your take on these?
Well, I haven't been in this particular field for so long, but I'm not aware of any kind of this, I mean, participatory development of models or scenarios. The participatory process that I know of is the water concept policy that was recently passed, and I think it's a pretty good policy concept, but of course it will depend on the implementation, and a lot of the points in the policy concept actually are quite related to what we are doing in TRANSCEND. But definitely, I think that this participatory approach and serious games and scenarios, it should be used much more.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Robert. Thank you for that. Then I would like to move to another pilot, and then I would invite somebody from the Greek pilot to take the floor and share the thoughts about what the modeling capacity or monitoring capacity is, or what kind of challenges are faced when transmitting the technical insight into policy making. So would there be a volunteer from the Greek team participating in this, or I should simply pick up somebody?
Okay, I'm Marinos from Crete.
Thank you, Marinos.
Allow me first a very brief introduction to Tibaki water basin. Crete is located in the Middle Eastern Mediterranean Sea, and we're aware about the climate change since the Africa is very close to Crete, only 500 kilometers far. And also, in order to tune it with David's presentation, the first civilization of Europe was born here in Crete, the Minoan civilization. Now, the water uses in our basin is the agricultural, which take the lion's shares of more than 80%, and cultivates vegetables in greenhouses, and also irrigates olive trees and wine grapes. Other uses are domestic and tourist supplies, and also the ecological flow. The water resources are both groundwater and surface water. A reservoir is now in operation, along with the pumping water from about 200 wells. And so we apply a conjunctive use of water, use groundwater and surface water. Another characteristic of our basin is that the precipitation occurs only during the winter. In summer, we have peak demands and have no precipitation. Conflicts arouse mainly dry years among farmers of downstream of the dam versus upstreams, farmers versus tourism, farmers versus domestic supplies, and versus environmentalists. Now, a few words about modeling in the Tibaki River Basin. I think we have to apply 6 models. First, a groundwater model like mode flow. And since the aquifer located in coastal plain, we have to run another model for seawater intrusion, since we have some a zone, a coastal zone contaminated by seawater intrusion. The third model is a surface model, like the basin and any other model, in order to see how to recharge the reservoir and the aquifer system. The fourth model, we need an allocation model such a WEAP model to simulate the water management in the basin, and also to develop what-if scenarios. The other model, the ecological model, we have no experience here in Crete, so we need the expert for the TRANSCEND to support us. And finally, I think we need a methodology model, how to integrate all the other model here in Crete. Now, about our expectation, first to simulate the river basin and to develop what if scenarios, in particular in dry years, and also for the impact of climate change. Another expectation is to create a holistic approach to combine hydrological models and with economical models. Another expectation is to exchange knowledge among the other basins of TRANSCEND, and also to introduce proposal to decision body in order to have a solid and robust water policy. The added value of TRANSCEND, which is the next step in here create, is to apply the methodologies to the other basin in the island.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Marina. So I would have again one follow-up question, and thank you for highlighting how this project can help your excellent technical expertise in developing further the policy matter. Again, about the serious game and this type of participatory, right?
We have no experience for a serious game. I tried to, in the first stakeholder meeting, to blind the serious game. According to questionnaire we sent to us, this is the only experience we have. And the first result was acceptable by stakeholders. Mainly because they give to all stakeholders to write down their opinions, and we have a bottom-up approach in order to give the word to every stakeholders and to make the decision. That's the first result of our serious games, but we are not expert to apply these serious games.
Well, this is not required. This is not required. This project will help you to develop the capability to doing that. So we take it as a challenge and we take it as an opportunity in your pilot. So thank you.
But it was acceptable from all the stakeholders.
Yes, brilliant. Thank you. So we're looking forward to applying that. Thank you very much, Marinos. And now let me move to another pilot. And perhaps I would ask the colleagues from the Mahanadi River Basin in India if there is somebody who would like to share the insight and thoughts about the modeling approach that we are planning to do, complexity of modeling in the river basin, or stakeholder engagement and participatory modeling. So may I turn to a volunteer from the Mahanadi River Basin in India? Okay, that seems this is going to be challenging. Niranyan Vedantam, are you with us? Can we invite you to take the floor? No, apparently this is still not going to work. And I will try again with Naga Achyuta Vaishnavi. I'll apologize for the pronunciation, which is probably wrong. Again, probably not going to have a input from Mahanadi River Basin, but let's go to Orontes River Basin in Lebanon. Can we have a brief input from the modeling about the modeling capability there?
Hi.
Hi, Lara.
So basically the gaps in the existing modeling of our lab is that the WMS model remains challenging because it's a karst hydrology. So the Orontes has a complex hydrology of a karst system. The springs flow from karst aquifer, and snow depth data is lacking in the basins. So we need to acquire some snow duration data. And also there is some illegal wells, so it's difficult to manage the pumping for agriculture and non-agricultural users. And we also need to update the agricultural land crop types. So basically, these are the challenges of our modeling, of our hydrologic modeling in the lab.
Thank you very much, Lara. And again, the type of serious game, do you see a possibility to run this participatory modeling with your stakeholder and provide meaningful insight? Is there a culture of using a similar participatory modeling? Could you elaborate a little bit on that, on your past experience?
Yes, okay. So from our previous workshop, we do think that we can apply this. It hasn't been applied for this case before, so we didn't try it yet. But I think it would be useful to apply participatory modeling and serious games, because it would make it easier to deliver the ideas that we are trying to deliver for the participants, since they come from different backgrounds, especially that there are stakeholders from like farmers, for example, and also others from the government. So it would make things easier for everyone. This approach would be easier for everyone to contribute.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Lara. And with that, and noting that we have only 4 minutes left until the end of this session of the WEBSTIVAL, I would invite Diony to join me on the floor, on the stage.
I am here, yeah. Thank
you. So we have had a good overview about what's going on in different river basin. I swear there was no preparation. So we pick up basically the contribution based on the volunteer in order to break the ice and get everybody the possibility to speak. I think we got an interesting overview about what is in there, what is expected from this project, and how we can contribute to improving the. So what is your thought about what we have been discussing, what you heard from the pilots? How confident are you that this project is going to deliver what it sets out to deliver and help the different policy audiences and constituencies to build the capacity?
Thank you, Yaro, for giving me the floor and for the excellent coordination and moderation of this last of the meeting today, and especially this last slot. It was challenging because it's the first time we all meet, so understandably people tend to be shy, and you don't know anyone else from the room. Is more difficult to engage. But I think that the objective for today's meeting was met. Our first objective, first and foremost, we wanted to start establishing this network of networks among the stakeholders, to make you know each other, to see that you are not alone in this project, that there are 6 other labs other than yours. We are working with all of them. The academic team has already been successful, I will say, in establishing valuable synergies, and we are collaborating in developing not only the models, also monitoring. This workshop was focused on modeling, but as you know, the project also deals with monitoring and with the stakeholder engagement. So we did stakeholder engagement and modeling in this meeting. Although Yaro also made a couple of questions on monitoring that were very relevant to Miquela Serra. So I think, just summing up, I think that we met the critical objective, meeting each other, knowing more about the other labs, establishing a connection. And I think that this will be highly instrumental towards not only the next WEBSTIVAL, but mainly towards the first international stakeholder workshop that we are going to have in the context of this project, in which we hope to have many of you meeting in person and exchanging interactions and participating in a serious game in which you will learn more about some other basin probably, or maybe yours, and openly discuss as we did today, but in person always it's easier to establish an interaction. So we hope that this is a catalyzer to have a very successful discussion in the first and second in-person meetings with you, stakeholders, and also why not in all the local workshops that in which you're going to participate over the next 3 years, because you already participated in one, but three more are pending. So we have plenty of opportunities to meet, and I think this is quite useful. Has been very useful to ignite a successful discussion in the future. So again, thank you very much, Jaro, for moderating this. I think it was very productive.
Brilliant, Diony. And what happens next, Ella? So basically, there will be a similar workshop for the second time zone meeting, and that's going to feature different speakers, but the scope is the different. But especially tomorrow, then we have another session wrap up like we had yesterday for 1 hour. And this is also the opportunity for anyone to talk, have a bilateral talk about the pilot, right? It's more wrapping up, it's a more project-oriented summary. It's open to all our stakeholders, but if somebody is particularly interested in having in-depth discussion on specific modeling issues and challenges, this is a good opportunity to join and talk to us in bilateral way. Is it correct?
Yeah, exactly. So tomorrow's session will be a wrap up, and it's very much flexible. Topics have not been defined yet. We will address them. We will address what stakeholders think that is more relevant. So we are looking forward, as Jaro was saying, to your feedback. And based on that, we will develop a session of 1 hour. It will be short. The only inconvenience for some of you may be that there is, again, there will be only one meeting for all the living labs at 2 GMT plus 1, which means that some of you may not be the most convenient time. But I mean, this is the advantages and the problems of this project is that we have so many people from so many places that it's impossible to find 1 hour that fits for all of you. But we nonetheless, as Jaro was saying, invite you to participate and come up with ideas. If you have any idea or any pressing issue you would like to address, you can drop us an email or simply show up to the meeting and make the question. We are looking forward to it.
Brilliant, thank you. So this is all we had time for today, and I would especially thank the speakers and the participants for their contribution. Also from my side, I think the session was very interesting. We will use the material. We will share the recordings if you agree to be recorded, and we will use that also for dissemination purposes. But please feel free to share this recording with your colleagues and peers in the pilot. I believe the presentation that have been made today show very nicely what we are up to in this project and what kind of opportunities are there. So with that, I hand over the floor to you, Dionysio, and thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to moderate this. Thank you.
Thank you, Jaro. So, I mean, I think that all has been said very briefly. I join Jaro in thanking you all for being here and participating. Thank you, all the speakers. And for those of you who will join us tomorrow, see you tomorrow. And the others, see you soon in the different workshops or international workshops or in the next WEBSTIVAL. So thank you all for being here. Take care.